I like to refer to widening participation as a kind of structural underrepresentation in university. So the SU defines it as groups like people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, people who are young carers, care leavers in the orphanage system, and refugee students as well. So really, it's just students who are typically underrepresented, especially in elite universities such as Warwick. And the WPO role is basically just about making sure that they are actually represented in conversations at the university.
The lecture that you gave today, talking about having these difficult conversations and why they're difficult conversations to have, kind of why is it important to talk about classism?
It's important to talk about classism for the same reason it's important to talk about sexism, racism and any other type of discrimination that students might face. It's just something that we don't necessarily talk about because it kind of hides in the shadows a lot of the time. You can't necessarily see it in the same way that you could see someone being a woman or non-binary or someone's skin colour. And so for that reason, that's why we need to start having these conversations, because it's simply they just don't happen right now. And it's time to start addressing the problems that come with that.
And you were talking in the lecture today about the possibility of including class as a protected characteristic. What would you say to someone who might see class differently, not like equivalent to something like sex?
I think, to be perfectly honest, the way that I see class is that it actually underpins every type of inequality that we see in terms of discrimination. We've already had campaigns from leading MPs like David Johnston from the Conservative Party, who's leading on kind of the campaign to make class a protected characteristic. So it's not as if it's just like university students and those kind of who are currently working class that want it to be a protected characteristic. It is people now who are actually middle class politicians representing absolutely everyone on all sides of the political debate that actually want it to be protected.
And Kieran, you're talking today about allyship. What do you think that looks like for students here on campus?
Yeah, I think allyship is really understanding that people's backgrounds are different to your own, and I think that is really the first step towards it. But I think allyship is exactly the same way as you would with issues like race, sexual orientation or gender. It's understanding differences and being able to call out instances of classism when you hear them happening, even if your friend who might be from a WP background isn't there. And just recognising areas where you may have privilege because of your socioeconomic background. I think it isn't talked a lot about, but things such as privilege in the application process, social capital, networking, all of those different areas have a huge impact on WP students at the university, and recognising actually where you might have those areas of privilege, I think is actually the most important thing to being an effective ally. But we talk about active bystander training a lot, and I think including those kinds of class conversations in those as well is really important to advance allyship in the university and just being able to, I guess as Thalia said, recognise class and treat it as if it were a protected characteristic, I think would go a long way to being an effective ally.
And Thalia, we've been talking today about some of the different networks that there are on campus. Can you tell us a little bit more about the 93% Club, something that you co-founded?
So May 2020, was lucky enough to be one of the co-founders. So the 93% Club is basically a society for students, specifically on Warwick's campus, but also across the UK. There is now lots and lots of networks in different universities. It's basically set up to be a community for students who are state educated to go and meet like-minded people, to get new opportunities, meet employers, kind of be able to kind of build those connections that we don't get because we're not part of the old boys club, and then to also kind of be able to develop skills that we need kind of life post-university. It's just really all about, like we've kind of spoken about in our lecture today, it's about building a community, finding a place where we can meet people who are very much like us and have similar sort of experiences.
And Kieran, did you want to tell us a little bit more about how these events came about in the first place through kind of your role as WP officer?
Yeah, so these events, I actually started planning them in term one and properly having these conversations in term two. I think I have recognised that these conversations don't happen a lot, as Thalia was saying. Class actually is a very difficult thing for me to talk about at times. However, I think understanding and representing those conversations has been really important as a part of this campaign. And it has taken a lot of time to put them together. You know, having Lee Elliott Major, having Sarah Atkinson, they're very big speakers. They know what they're talking about, and they're really influential figures in the class space and with social mobility. And really, the campaign is. It's a bit of a love effort of mine. I've put a lot of my time into it, but you know, over these 3 weeks, it's the second week now. I think it's been really important just raising the profile and having those conversations. I think I've had more conversations about class in these 2 weeks than like the other years of my university experience. I think that has been the powerful thing of this campaign.
And it's not over yet. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you've got coming up?
Yeah, of course. So we still have the videos coming up on the TikTok. So we had the first video come out, which was about indirect classism and financial constraints on students. But we still have 2 more videos. So I'd really recommend people to check those out on the TikTok, which is about direct instances of classism. So that was the kind of thing we talked about in the lecture today. Stuff like accent calling, name calling, and also about allyship as well, if people want to figure out how to be a bit of a better ally towards people from WP backgrounds. With the actual event series, there's one more lecture to go next week, which is with Sarah Atkinson. She is CEO of the Social Mobility Foundation, which do a lot of work to helping organisations and employers transition in becoming more inclusive of people from working class backgrounds. I'm very excited for it. And I really hope people do come along. I'm going to do a bit of a shameless plug next Thursday, the 11th, in OCO 3 at 1 to 2 p.m.
All right. And if people want to get involved in the 93% Club, find out a little bit more information, how can they do that, Thalia?
So they can go to @93 Club Warwick on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm no longer on the society executive anymore, but I'm sure that absolutely anyone who is will be more than happy to kind of help people who want to engage with the society and what it stands for.
All right. Thank you very much to you both for speaking to me.